All right, we're here today with activist extraordinaire Jamie Logan. Jamie, I think I've seen you almost everywhere on every social media platform, working with basically every animal rights group I've ever heard of. And one of the most remarkable things about all that is I still feel like I don't know who you are. So
I'm
who are you, Jamie
mysterious.
Logan?
I have to
Like,
remain mysterious.
I want to know who is the real Jamie Logan? Who? No, seriously, like, who are you? How did you get started with this? Like, what's behind? Because most of your stuff on social media, which is super engaging and hilarious, and you're always doing all sorts of pranks and occasionally getting arrested and dancing in jail somehow, which I have still not figured out how you got away with that, and I've got to learn how to do that because I've been in jail a lot, and if I even tried to do that, I'd probably get punched in the face. But you're doing all this like crazy, awesome social media stuff, but it's all like, 15-second, 20-second Instagram stuff. And I want to know who you actually are. How did this all start?
That is a really hard question. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And it's such an honor to be here. And you are a huge inspiration to me. So just thank you, thank you, thank you.
Jamie, this isn't a comedy. You don't have to joke, all right? You can tell the truth. You can tell the
No,
truth on this podcast.
I am being truthful.
All right,
Who
fair
am
enough.
I? Who am I?
Who is Jamie Logan?
I'm just a girl.
Are you gonna sing? Are you
Yeah,
gonna
I
answer
mean,
that
no.
question in song?
Nobody wants to hear me sing. However, this microphone right here, it looks like I'm about to bust out into some like pop song
I think you're
situation,
the
but
next Ariana Grande. I mean,
I'll
personally.
save you from that horror show.
Oh, actually, she's an ex-vegan, so you're definitely not the next Ariana Grande.
She's not vegan
No,
anymore.
yeah, she's ex-vegan now. I know, I'm
Oh,
pretty sure.
okay. Well,
Yeah,
canceled. Who am
yeah.
I? I'm just a girl that cares, and I think that
Mm,
that's I'm just an animal lover. I grew up with a dog, and I just somehow extended that same love that I have for her to all animals. And
mm,
I always like to say that if I could go vegan and become an activist, literally anybody can.
you do
I
it,
grew
yeah.
up in New York City. I got two younger brothers. My parents divorced at a very young age, so I
Mm,
would grow up like part of the time at my mom's, part of the time at my dad's, and grew up in a supportive family. I went to a performing arts high school on the Upper West Side, so I do have a background in acting
mm,
and
okay.
showbiz. A little, no,
Now I
kidding,
know where you come from a
kidding,
little bit more. Yeah.
kidding. But yeah, so that was like a big part of my childhood, and I played softball growing up.
Wow.
I on a few different teams. That was my thing,
Hmm.
and yeah, and then I just I found my purpose through animal rights. And I was like, I always stuck up for the underdog growing up. I think that was, if I saw somebody being bullied, or if I saw a stray cat on my 12th birthday, and I spent my entire weekend of my 12th birthday just trying to find this cat a home. We ended
Oh.
up getting in touch with like a rescue group. So I don't know. Do any of us really know who we are? Yeah.
Yeah, the great Buddhist masters say there's only one and only one question that all of us face in this world, which is know thyself. And
Mm.
once you answer that question, you've become enlightened. When they say you reach enlightenment, it's just that you understand yourself. But yeah, I mean that's all fine and good, but that's a story that like literally a million Americans could tell. Like it still doesn't really answer the question, who is Jamie Logan and why is Jamie? I mean, most people do not start a bunch of kind of social media channels, a podcast, get arrested. Did you get arrested for disrupting a fashion show? I'm trying to remember. You've gotten arrested a number of times.
Well, I was not arrested actually at the Coach fashion show,
Okay.
I was prepared to be arrested, but they
You just got assaulted and dragged off, if I remember correctly.
yes.
Which everyone should go check it out because it's kind of funny to be. Am I allowed to say that? Because you did get assaulted, so I feel bad saying that.
It's
You're not offended, are
hilarious.
you?
No,
Okay.
I was
It is
fine.
kind of funny.
The
Well,
guy
because
was
it's
like,
funny because you and Sasha look so elegant and beautiful. You look like these fashion models, and you got these big security people like dragging you off for some reason. It just looks ridiculous. So,
he slammed me into the wall like I was some NFL
ooh,
player. Little did he know though
yeah,
that
Jamie Logan's tough
I
as nails.
I was, yeah, and then I wouldn't have stopped if he didn't tackle
Yeah,
me the way that he did. So,
yeah, it's pretty
I mean,
wild.
yeah.
No, but seriously, like, what do you think distinguishes you from? I want to talk more about kind of everything you've done in terms of becoming an influencer because
Yeah.
you're like, it's weird. You're like a late stage influencer, and so I almost feel like I don't know how to describe this. There's a lot of influencers who arise over an extended period of time, and so You can kind of see them developing, and you can kind of figure out and theorize as to how they became who they became. Like James Aspie, I had him on the show recently. And, he's like, I could kind of understand the entire evolution of James Aspie, but Jamie Logan's a little different in that you like shot out like a supernova. It's just like this huge explosion, and suddenly you're everywhere. But before we get into the influencer stuff, because I think the influencer stuff is super interesting. Like, what your story is a story a lot of American teenagers can tell growing up in New York City, but they don't become animal rights activists. They get tackled at fashion shows and thrown in jail for activism they're doing with, every other animal rights organization in the world. So what's different? Like, what made you different?
Well, let me be very clear that I get scared before these actions. I mean, they are
Really?
not easy to do. Absolutely. I'm thinking through every possible thing. I'm like, am I going to have the sign up right? Is the message going to get out the way that we want it to? That's really where my concern is. It's not so much like having pertaining to myself. It's more so like, are we going to get in? Are we going to get this message out there for the animals? Because so many things can go wrong with these type of actions that are high risk and high pressure. You could trip and fall, and then all of a sudden you get dragged off and everybody's laughing at you. And this is definitely something that would happen to me. And then nobody hears about the cows, and then it becomes about how, PETA activist is a clown, so that, I just want to make that very clear that like, I think as an activist, we just are trying to keep the message in mind, and I'm just using myself as a medium to get this information across. And so through my videos, it's like that I just use my own personality to try to get people to relate to veganism, to this message. And, the way that some people might look at me is going to be different than how they might look at somebody like you or somebody like James Aspie or somebody like Nimai Delgado. It's like, we just got to draw people in. And I try to really use attraction rather than promotion a lot of the time to draw people in, that be like, oh, look, we can have so much energy. Like, we're happy. We love animals, and you can too. And you can align your values and your morals with this message. So it didn't start off this way. When it comes to how I am now, it was definitely an evolution.
You do a great job of that, by the way. I mean, you're one of the best about that. Like, because animal rights activists is so doom and gloom. And there's a lot of scary, nasty stuff that's happened to animals, obviously. But if you don't have that positive tone and culture, not that everything in the movement has to be all like, happy-go-lucky. But I do think one of the things that David Brockman, a political scientist at UC Berkeley, who's studied persuasion and social change and understands it better than almost anybody I know, he's gay himself, and he told me the gay rights movement succeeded because every one of their actions felt like a party.
Oh, wow.
So many people came because they're like, hell yeah, I want to be a part of this. This is like a party. And he said even during the AIDS crisis, when you had like hundreds of thousands of people literally fucking dying, they still do these big protests. And again, there were a lot of tears and, a lot of protesting and a lot of anger, but it also felt like joyous. And you do just a splendid job of that. Every one of your actions just feels fun. It feels like a party.
Yeah, and I think that we all have our own approach, and what might work for me is there's going to be a different approach that works for somebody else. And I really try to come from a place of not judging other people for their activism. I think that doing nothing is the worst thing that we can do. So trying all different sorts of things. And I started off my activism really angry. Very different in my approach. And it's hard not to be angry when you see what happens to billions of animals every single year. It's hard not to look at your family and your friends and feel hate towards them for participating in an industry that is so violent and so cruel. But I had to start looking at, am I being effective in my approach? Are people looking at me and saying, I want to be like that? I want to listen to her. I want to go vegan and change. Or are they running away from me? And I think maybe I reached some people in my approach of where I was yelling at everyone and being and acting from a place of anger. But I think that acting from a place of love now is reaching more people. And that's my goal, is to educate, inspire, uplift. I want people to know that I am rooting for them. I want them to live longer and feel better and live a life that reduces suffering for others. And that's kind of where I'm at right now in my activism journey. And I will take whatever steps that it takes. If it means, going into politics down the road, then that's what I'll do. If it means, going to jail for this cause, then that's what I'll do in any way that we can raise awareness. And right now, the forms of activism that I do and the social media stuff that I do, I'm just looking at what's reaching people. And if it's reaching people, that's something that's working, and just trying to look at what's most effective for the animals.
Yeah. Somehow I just can't imagine you angry. I don't think I've ever seen or heard you angry.
Sometimes when I'm angry, I start laughing. It's really, really, yes. I remember.
Oh,
when
you're
I
one
was
of
a
those
kid-
types. Yeah.
Yes, when I was a kid,
I
too.
feel so bad for you because angry people who laugh when they're angry. No one ever takes your anger that seriously. It's really
No, they
unfortunate.
don't take me seriously. They do not take me seriously, and I'm like trying to be angry. But
Were
it's
you always
funny.
that way? Is that the way you when you were growing up too? With
Well,
people
my
like,
mom,
were you
when I
just
was
a happy kid?
I think I'm a happy person. I am. And I was
That's
always
awesome.
the class clown, always joking around, never wanted to get too political, kind of kept things light, cracked a joke when situations were tense. And I'll never, like, growing up, my mom, God love her, I mean, she would, like, quote unquote, ground us and then start laughing. And, like,
Aw,
I think I got a lot of
what a
that from her.
sweetheart.
She'd be like, she's like, you're not allowed to go anywhere. And then would forget, like an hour later. So we didn't grow up with super strict
Strike rules. Yeah.
rules. And, what is life if we don't have laughter, if we don't have happiness? And as activists, like, I think there's this misconception in the vegan space that we have to be sad all the time, that we have to be
Yeah.
angry all the time. And unfortunately, like, yes, the world is a sad place, but if I'm sad and angry all the time, I am not going to be able to be effective for the animals.
Yeah. No, there's so much truth to that. So I've actually just been emailing today with this sociologist at Stanford named Doug McAdam. And he studied the civil rights movement and all these other social movements. And he's really interesting because he uses data. It's not just case studies and stories from history. He actually takes like a lot of evidence, and he did these really compelling statistical studies of the civil rights movement. And one of the most important things he found, and he invented a concept around this, is movements that create optimism are movements that succeed. Movements that create pessimism almost always fail. And actually it's even more important in the face of obstacles when you're dealing with like horrible, sad stuff, when your friends are going to jail, when you're going to jail. Like in the civil rights movement, you got all these people getting thrown in jail. Literally people being firebombed and assassinated just for like doing things like registering someone to vote. Imagine that. You register someone to vote, and they murder you for it. And they murder you in this awful, horrible way, like firebombing your car when you burned a lot to death. I can't imagine being positive and optimistic in a setting like that. But what Doug McAdam finds is that Black Americans in the 1960s, for example, were getting more and more optimistic, and they had this sense of meaning and even joy. Like, say they'd go out there and fight the good fight in the streets, but feel good about it. And so it's very similar to what David Brockman was telling me about the gay rights movement, that the activism felt like a party. You went to the March on Washington, and it wasn't about doom and gloom. It was about a dream. It was like Martin Luther King Jr.'s historic speech was not, I have a nightmare, even though he could have told that speech, right? He could have talked about the nightmare that was racial segregation. I mean, like that was a time when my family wasn't even allowed in this country when he gave that speech in 1963, because there was a law in the books that forbade Chinese people from coming to that country. So he could have given a speech in 1963 saying, I have a nightmare, which is what's unfolding in America for people of color. Instead, he said, I have a dream. And that's what rallied people. So your mom has a very good attitude. I'm glad she transmitted to you. I have to say, I had to learn this the hard way because my mom was the opposite. I love my mom. Rest in peace. She passed away a few years ago. But she was the sort of person that even when she was praising me, it still felt like condemnation. She was the sort of person. Okay, so there's a famous Dimitri Martin joke that's sorry, I'm going to butcher it. I'm totally not a comedian, but Dimitri Martin basically makes a joke that the two most important words in the world are sort of. And like my mom was the master of using the word sort of. She was like, I'm happy for you, sort of. Or like, you did a good job, sort of. And it's like those two words made all the difference in the world. Like Dimitri Martin joke, the best line from Dimitri Martin is he says something like, when your doctor comes to you and says, you're alive, sort of. But anyway, like I said, I don't do as well as but it sounds like your mom did a much better job of creating that positive mentality. Again, I don't mean to criticize my mom, because my mom, every one of us has strengths and weaknesses. Like we need people like you who are super positive, and someone else may not have your strengths and optimism and positivity. They may be really good at music or good at singing. You just said you're not the best singer, but I don't know. I mean, you seem to have a lot of talent. So
I can do a little karaoke up in this bitch, right, but that's about all. But yeah, and I love that you're talking about, positivity, joy, and like I think you brought up a really good point where if we cannot, as activists, speak about the world and speak about how we want to see it and see the vegan movement succeeding and talk about it in a positive way, i.e., I have a dream,
Yeah.
then how do we expect that to happen? If we
Yeah.
cannot even say all beings will be free, all beings deserve to be happy, like we deserve, or actually speak it as if it's already happening, I think that there's a lot of power in that.
You know who else is the master of this? Ingrid Newkirk. Is she your boss? Like, do you ever talk to her?
No, but I adore her from
Yeah.
afar. She doesn't know me well. We've met once, but
Okay.
wow,
Do you
she's
work for
amazing.
PETA? I don't even know if you work for PETA.
I host their podcast, but
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So, well, anyways, Ingrid Newkirk is the master. If you've ever heard her give a talk, she will talk about the most horrible things in the world, just like the most horrific abuse. But she'll do it in this weird kind of upbeat way that makes you convinced it's about to stop, and it almost makes the horror feel good because as it's kind of like, they say the greatest joy in the world is when pain is relieved, when you're really sick and the next day you're better, or like you've got a broken leg and the next day it heals and it doesn't hurt anymore. That's like the greatest feeling in the world. There's no greater joy than having some pain relieved. And Ingrid is a master of this because she'll give talks. Like she gave a talk at in Utah once where we invited her to give a keynote at the Animal Liberation Western Convergence. We have all these crazy names for our conference. Every one of them is like DAC Forum. I don't even know the name of them. Animal Liberation Convergence, Animalist. I don't even know why it was Western Convergence. It was just a convergence. But anyways, it was called the Animal Liberation Western Convergence. And Ingrid Newkirk, who's the founder of PETA, just like a legendary activist, she comes and she talks about some of the most horrible stuff you can imagine. But she always ends it with the sense that we're gonna solve this.
Right.
And
we are.
There's like some people in this world who have just this almost next level degree of confidence, and Ingrid is definitely one of them. She's unbelievable.
We are going to end this because again, it's like
Yeah,
why would I fight so hard if I was not optimistic that we are going to see a vegan world or that our children or our children's children are going to see a vegan world? If I was just like the animals are it's going to get worse, all this stuff, then why would I be fighting as hard as I do,
Right on.
So
and that's what Doug McAdam finds in his research, that when you tell people, and when people start believing they can make change, that's when cognitive liberation happens, because they feel like we have a sense of collective power. You know who you need to talk to? You're in New York City, right?
I am.
You need to go knock on Ezra Klein's door. You know who Ezra Klein is, the columnist of the New York Times? Okay.
Yes.
He just had a podcast that was so doom and gloom about veganism. He's vegan himself, and I've met him a number of times. He's a great guy, like one of the smartest people in the world, and really cares about animals. His wife is amazing too. His wife, Annie Lowry, just wrote this amazing piece in The Atlantic about organic dairy. But he's had this podcast where he and another vegan basically spend an entire hour talking about how impossible veganism is, and it's just never going to happen. And our only hope is cultivated meat, and even that's not a very good hope. And I'm just like, dude, are you trying to shoot ourselves in the foot? You tell everyone this is impossible. No one's going to do it if you keep telling people it's impossible. And the worst part is, it's not impossible. We're already seeing the change happening. There's so much change happening all over the country, all over the world. And it's unbelievable how much we should be optimistic, and yet people are still so pessimistic.
And I think that being said, though, we can't lose sight of how much work we still have to do. So there's a balance here of recognizing and looking at like, okay, we are going to achieve this vegan world. Here are some of the steps that we are going to take. Here's what's working. Here's what is maybe not working so much. But we need to work together, come together to do this. But then also not getting caught up in our vegan bubble and being around all of our vegan friends and thinking the world is further along than it is. It's super important for us as activists to read the Farmers Daily, to look at other sources of information, to see what else is out there so that we can know realistically of where the world is at and what's going on. Because when you do look at the number of animals that are being killed every year, it is increasing. So as of right now, we're not in a good place. However, that doesn't mean that we aren't going to achieve animal liberation. We absolutely are. But I do think it is important to also look at things realistically and use that to fuel your activism, not to get down on yourself.
Yeah, over the last 10 years, per capita meat consumption has actually gone up in the United States quite a bit. And veganism, there was just a poll done by the Gallup polling agency company, I forget the name of the company, that showed that veganism is about the same as it's been for the past 20 years. But I think there are a lot of other indicators a lot better, and we can talk about those. But speaking of optimism, here's lightning round question. How long before animal liberation happens? How many years? And let me define animal liberation. Animal liberation is the end of the use of animals, the kind of the elevation of animals in terms of moral and legal significance, maybe not to quite the point of human beings, but certainly to the point that we're not allowed to hurt them, kill them, hold them captive. How long before we reach that point?
That's I want to say like 50 years, but I could be so far off.
I love it.
However, yes.
Most people say like 5,000. I hate it when people say things like that.
I want to say sooner rather than later. I do think that we're going to hit a point where there's going to be a social and societal shift, kind of like how you saw with cigarettes, where there were started becoming labels on the cigarette packages saying that this is unhealthy for you. And what once was cool and super normal and everybody had a cigarette in their hand now is kind of like seen as, ew, that's kind of gross. And
I'm going to punch you in the face.
Or exactly, don't smoke that.
That literally happened outside of a show a couple of years ago.
To you?
No, not to me. I don't smoke. Hey, what are you doing to me, Jamie? You're destroying. No, I'm kidding.
See,
I'm just kidding. If you smoke, we love you, even if you smoke. Although cigarettes are tested on animals, so be wary of that. That's another good reason not to smoke cigarettes. No, it just happened at a show. It was actually a vegan I know who was a cigarette smoker got punched in the face for smoking outside of a show.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully we start to see this with meat eaters as well, where the
Did you just advocate for punching meat eaters in the face, Jamie?
All right. Well, maybe not punch, but gently shove. I don't know.
Okay.
Something. The point is to show that it's socially unacceptable, and that when you go to a restaurant, the default is going to be vegan, to the point where we shouldn't even have to say the word vegan. It should just be default, and it should be common sense that we shouldn't slit anybody's throat for a meal, and that people that want to do that have to request the violence.
Yeah.
I think is more so what we'll see in our lifetime. And I do think that our future generations are going to look back and be disgusted at the practices we have today. If not the end of eating animals fully, at least the end of the meat industry as we know it today. When we look at the big scale factory farms and those systems that we have in place today, I think will be abolished in our lifetime.
Yeah. So there's this like funny philosophical test that, intellectuals do a lot where I forget the name of the test. There's some term for it. It's like the Herman test or something like that, where they ask, 100 years from now, what will our ancestors say that we did that was a moral atrocity? Given that we know, if you look back 100 years ago, basically in every generation in human history, people 100 years forward always say, man, can you believe what people did 100 years ago? Look how stupid and disgusting they were. And this test has been done a lot of times in the context of a lot of different intellectuals, philosophers, thinkers. And recently, I think I heard this guy Rutger Bregman do it. He wrote this book called Utopia for Realists. It's a really good book, and he's a fascinating dude. He's like a historian in, I think, Denmark or something. But he's most famous for getting into this huge fight with Tucker Carlson on Fox News, where they got into like a shouting match. It's kind of hilarious. It doesn't matter. But anyways. So Rutger Bregman, I don't think he's even vegan himself, but he basically says, I think he actually said this on the Ezra Klein show. He says, like, basically everyone who takes that test, who's an intelligent person, always says animals. They just always do. There's this other guy at Princeton, Anthony Appiah, who wrote a similar book, and he wrote in the Washington Post about this. Nicholas Kristof, another New York Times columnist who's not vegan himself, he wrote the same thing. Because, when everyone was tearing down the statues during the George Floyd protests, saying, why do we have all these racists celebrated outside of government buildings and universities? Nicholas Kristof asked the question, well, we're tearing down the histories of the people before us. What statues are people 100 years now from now going to tear down relating to what we do? And one of the three things he listed, or maybe it was one of the two things, was the way we treat animals, 100%. Because it's an atrocity and can't be defended. So I am very glad that you said 50 years. Although I agree with you, we can be even more optimistic. Yeah. My target date, and this is ambitious. I don't think it's necessarily going to happen in 25 years, but I think it's feasible. I think it is feasible, and I can see an unfolding strategy that would allow this movement to succeed at ending institutionalized animal exploitation. People are always going to kill animals. There's some animals, just like people kill people.
Right. Right.
Actually, let me correct myself. Human beings will always kill other human beings because animals are people too. So people will always kill yeah, exactly. Human beings will always kill humans and non-human animals. but we can end institutionalized animal exploitation in 50 years or less. So I love that you said that. Okay, but I want to go back to the original question that we kind of deviated from, because I think it's a fascinating question, especially for someone like you, because you are a very positive person. You're charismatic. I have no doubt you could succeed in mainstream society in a lot of ways. Unlike me, I'm in the movement because I'm a weirdo, and there's nowhere else
You
I could possibly succeeded. Just true. No, I'm such a weirdo. So like, no, I'm kidding. I shouldn't say that. I'm like dissing our own community. That's not cool. So I actually was somewhat successful in various other walks of life before I became a convicted felon.
I
But
believe it.
you are a very kind of seemingly mainstream person with a lot of mainstream characteristics. You're very charismatic and very talented. You could do a lot of things. So you still haven't really explained who is Jamie Logan. How the hell does Jamie Logan become? If you are like a happy person in an otherwise, normal family, don't seem to have any like tragic dark side that leads you down the path to animal liberation. Like, how did you become a part of this movement that so many people see is like very different and radical? I agree with you, it's not, but
Yeah.
what explains Jamie Logan?
I think I would describe myself as a happy person. Like that is just,
Yeah.
and I think we all at our core, under these layers and layers and layers of hurt and disappointment and nerves or whatever it is, we are all happy at our core. Like our true selves, I believe our true nature is happiness, is joy, is enlightenment. However, it's through society and through life where different layers come above it. And I think from I definitely I did not have like a normal necessarily upbringing by any means of that matter. And I think my upbringing kind of led me to be more sensitive to other people's suffering and causes. I grew up in an alcoholic household and was from a young age just exposed to a lot and had to deal with a lot and step into the role, I feel, of a parent at times and just mature and grow up very quickly. And then I think like I just I was like kind of the protector. I had two younger brothers, and so like that was something that I wanted to always shield them from, and I didn't realize that then that actually was hurting me, was really hurting me. And then I think when I would see the suffering of others, or especially animals, I could almost relate to that. Like I always put on this like very hard shell or this like very joyous, charismatic personality, as you're saying, but really on the inside, I was hurting. And so it wasn't through like, I think years of like self work and therapy and meditation and yoga where I finally feel I'm at the most stable place in my life that I've ever been in terms of just like outside forces. Because the truth of the matter is that like you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you react to things. So I think, I am at a place in my life where I'm not having as much of this outside chaos happen because I'm not living at home anymore. I'm now an adult. I'm not reliant off of my parents in any financial way at this point. So that helped a lot. But yeah, I think the traumas that I experienced as a kid definitely made me more sensitive to other suffering, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I'm sorry you went through that. I definitely now I'm starting to understand Jamie Logan. The true Jamie Logan is coming out a little bit. And I'm sorry you went through those difficult moments. I feel like a lot of us have similar experiences like that. That's why you were such a puzzle to me for a while. I'm like, Jamie seems like such a happy person who's had such a perfect life. How the hell did she become an animal rights activist? Because so many of us, I mean, just to be honest, a lot of us do have our demons because that's part of what makes you empathize. When you've gone through some suffering yourself, you can empathize with others who suffer. I feel totally free to turn me down on this, but can you tell me more about like what happened with your family? I mean, what was it that was it you said your parents were alcoholics or one of your parents was an alcoholic?
Yeah, one of my parents is an alcoholic, still is, and I think, from a young age when they divorced, there was a lot of fighting. Like some of my earliest childhood memories are police at my house and and fighting and not fully understanding what's going on. And then it's like, okay, 1 week now we're just seeing my dad on Wednesdays and every other weekend. He doesn't live with us anymore. And, I was 5. So it's like you only understand so much. And then your parents start dating other people and then you mix in alcohol with things. And unfortunately, it did affect my relationship with my parents to a certain extent, because it's like, just, it was like constantly something going on that I
Yeah.
had to deal with. And then I was just embarrassed when friends would come over, things like that. And for me, it was like, it wasn't so much as like we didn't have financial struggles, but more emotional struggles. Like, I felt as a
Mm.
kid, I didn't really get as much of that emotional attention as I think I needed.
Yeah. Which is hard for a parent when they're going through their struggles. I mean,
Exactly. And now
like
I understand that.
hurt people. Yeah. And
Yeah.
people who are in pain, one of the horrible things about pain isn't just the immediate experience it causes to you, but your inability to focus on anything else. Just
Yeah.
pain does make people more selfish, because it's just, I mean, it's literally like this electrical impulse, a jolt to your central nervous system telling your entire body, pay attention to me, pay attention to what this is, whether that's emotional pain. Like, it sounds like there was even physical violence in your household, which is terrible, and I'm sorry. And
Yeah.
it's hard for someone who's in a relationship. And it's especially bad when it's someone you love,
And
because
also, yeah,
that's,
there was never an admittance to alcoholism either. Like, there was still, I feel like there's still not, nobody wants to admit that there is an alcohol problem. And
yeah,
so it was
wow.
like, I was like, wait, are they an alcoholic? Like,
Yep.
what does this mean? And I never wanted to actually accept it for myself, to be like, one of my parents is an alcoholic, and that
Yeah.
sucks. And it's sad, because it's like, I think, you know, both my parents love me so much, and they're so supportive of everything that I'm doing now. And they've actually made a lot of changes in their lives. And my mom was pescatarian most of my life. Like, I don't recall
Mm.
her ever eating land animals. However, she now has, I want to say she's upwards of 90% plant based, where
It's
she texted
awesome.
me the other day. She was on a flight. She's a flight attendant. She was on a flight in, I think she was in Buenos Aires. And she's like, I'm at dinner and the crew thinks I'm weird. She's like, I have sweet potatoes on my plate. They don't have anything else for me to eat. And I was just like, it's okay, mom. Like, welcome to my world. I said, like, the
Mhm.
only thing that's weird is eating innocent, defenseless animals. And one day they will understand.
Oh yeah, right on.
Yeah.
Well,
And
that's
then my
amazing
dad,
that your mom, yeah.
yeah, my dad too. Like, he had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and like, he went majority plant based and still is majority plant based. And he is now off of all of his medications, which is cool. But I think that there's
That's
a big
amazing.
difference between saying plant based and vegan. Like, they don't
Yep.
have the level of like super hardcore vegan, like, looking at leather shampoos, and what products are tested on animals,
Mhm.
entertainment, like, they're not there yet, but they are getting there.
They're thinking about it. That's
Oh, for
awesome.
sure.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. I mean, look, everybody makes mistakes, and I'm sure your dad has so many positive qualities beyond even the ones you've just talked about. But especially with fathers and men, because men, honestly, we just don't learn very well in general. But especially to learn from children. I mean, no, I'm dead serious. Like, I I love my father so much, and he's such a good person, and like, I've learned so many good things from him. But he's still not vegan, and like, it's been really hard. And part of it, I think this is especially true of Chinese families, but I do think it's just kind of the culture of men more generally. Like, you're the provider, you're the boss, and you can't listen to your kids, that sort of thing. And the fact that your dad is able to listen to you and learn from you and try to do things that are better for the world and for himself, I mean, that's amazing. And you know,
Yeah, he
not to say
is.
that he's a perfect person or he's made up for everything, but that is pretty cool that he's been able
Oh,
to do that.
he'll come to the sanctuary with me. I have him scoop and poop. I mean, he does the whole thing. And he, on Father's
Yeah,
Day, actually, we're going to the sanctuary near where he lives, and he loves it. It's just, I think I need to be around more to guide him and
yeah,
enforce it. And
definitely.
in his generation, it's like he goes out with
Yeah,
his friends, and then
yeah.
he also experiences the social pressure that my mom is describing, where his friends will make comments about him having a plate of vegetable risotto as opposed to the steak or the fish that's on their plates. And then if you don't have that strong backbone and almost that little bit of a rebellious nature, you then start to get uncomfortable, and then you just go along with whatever they're doing because it's the
Yeah.
social pressure.
Yeah, there's something really subtle and insidious about social pressure, and maybe insidious isn't the right word, because there are some cases where social pressure is good, just kind of like the smoking thing, where social pressure is working in the opposite direction and just guiding us towards better behaviors. But with the smoking case, it's a situation where even people who smoke, or at least most of the people I know who smoke, when they feel the social pressure, they kind of acknowledge it's a good thing. They're like, yeah, I actually kind of think it's good. I'm glad people don't want me to smoke because I don't want to die. And these cigarettes are literally killing me. But there are other ways that social pressure, especially when we don't even acknowledge it and realize it, we're not conscious of the fact that we're just trying to fit in. But there can be something really insidious about it. When I was a lawyer, you may have heard I've been suspended from the practice of law, and I haven't been a lawyer at a big law firm in a long time. But I remember when I was a lawyer at a big law firm in Chicago and then in Palo Alto, one of the hardest things was like, the partners would take the clients out to dinners and stuff. And I remember one time my boss in Chicago, Chris Barber, he took out like a really important client to a super fancy, famous steakhouse. And he invited me to come along, and I came along. And I swear to God, everyone that entire dinner was just looking at me and laughing at me and making me feel so stupid the entire time. And I already, thank God I had been a vegan by that point, for 12 years. And I was very solid. And you learn how to laugh along and push back a little bit and make fun of them. You could say like, well, at least I'm not going to die when I'm 50 like you.
Right.
Not that you should say that. Not that you should say that. That's a very, very that's a very dangerous response that you only want to say with people you trust. But it was still hard, and even if you're joking around, like you start feeling it when you're at the butt of the jokes, and it's hard. So shout out to your dad for being able to stand up to that. What was his background? Your mom was a flight attendant. What was his background?
Yeah. So my dad was a business owner. Growing up, he took over my grandfather's business. It was a delivery business, and it was called Route Messenger. And so he ran that and was always just working, like very stressed out with that. And then he ended up moving the business out to Jersey, where he lives now. And he runs part of that business, owns some real estate, and does developments. And then also, he ran a gym for many years. He built a retro fitness out in Jersey and then ended up selling it right before the pandemic. So he's now kind of still working on the real estate end of things and for doing stuff with the delivery business. But it's nice to see where he's at now because he's mostly retired. So I'm like, yay, you can come out and do activism with us. What better time, Dad?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
What's your and it's okay if you don't want to answer this question. What's your relation to alcohol now? Do you have like a negative feeling about it, or?
That's a really good question. So now I really don't drink. It's rare if I do. I really don't drink, but I went through a period where I think I was kind of at the tipping point where I was like, wow, I could either go down that path or I could go the complete opposite way. And I'm lucky that I went the opposite way. I think growing up in New York City, we were in clubs at 14 years old. Wow. I had a fake ID and my mom actually congratulated me on it. She was like, this looks great.
Your mom sounds so awesome.
My mom is like a 16-year-old.
That's great.
Which is great in some ways. Yes. Not so good in other ways.
Yeah.
But yeah. And so we were in clubs from a very young age. And
she sounds like such a fun flight attendant. I want to take a flight with your mom.
She's fun until she's not fun.
And then when it gets a little too fun.
Then it's a little too fun. And then nobody's having fun because So that being said, I would say, alcohol and drugs were always accessible and always around, but because growing up in New York, it's like you have to get home. You have to know where your surroundings are. I was very aware of my surroundings. And, I was always aware. Growing up in New York, you think everybody's going to steal something from you. Or at least I was very aware of my surroundings. And I was taking the train at 12 years old by myself, So that being said, when I got to college... So I was drinking heavily. I could probably knock back 6 shots and 2 beers and still be fine and hanging out. That was kind of that I could hang. I wasn't.
That's impressive because you're not a very big person.
No.
You're
not No.
200 pounds.
Yeah. Now I would probably.
But you can't tell by looking at Jamie. She's not 200 pounds.
No. I would probably be on the
I
floor
mean, in theory,
now.
you could be like 10 feet tall. So you could be slim and 10 feet tall and 200
It's
pounds and
still a
therefore able
lot
to
of
take 6 drinks.
it
Yeah,
is a
that's
lot
6
of
drinks is a lot.
alcohol for
That's a lot of alcohol
anybody.
for someone.
It's a
Yeah, I
lot.
agree.
And
Even a 200-pound person, that's a lot.
by the time you get to college, there's this drinking culture, at least here in America, where it's just like if you're not like going to the pregame and having a few drinks there, and then if you're not doing it when you're at the frat house. I wasn't in a sorority or fraternity, but I went to a lot of the parties in college because I would just go with my friends. And that being said, it's like you're in some of these places in a stinky basement of some house that is just messy and atrocious, and the only way to have fun is if you have a few drinks. So that being said, I think there were times where, yeah, like I definitely drank and I had my moments for sure. But then by the time I think I hit 21, by the time I hit 21, I was kind of over alcohol because I started getting
That's hilarious. At 21 is when you stopped drinking. That's great.
Yeah.
That's such a great story.
Because I think I was getting super involved in animal rights activism, and it was no longer about me and what my going out experience was. And for me, it was like, if I'm going to go out, I'm going to talk about veganism, and I need to make sure that I'm not slurring my words, you know?
Yeah, sure. How old are you now?
25.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's been basically 4 years of basically sober existence or close to sober.
Well, close to sober. I have had I've had a few moments.
Okay. Yeah.
But
so we have a mutual friend.
I can stop drinking. Like I can have a drink and be done with it.
Done.
You know what I mean?
Done. Yeah. So we have a mutual friend who's very, very against alcohol. And every time I talk to him, he always talks about, hey, when you're organizing events, no alcohol. We don't have to say what it is. I think you know what we're talking about. And I think when I first started talking to him, I thought, this is a little extreme. And I will say this. I say this to someone who doesn't drink either. But I just thought, like, I've been around enough settings. Like, I was a corporate lawyer at a big law firm. I used to go to karaoke bars every single night. That's a totally different story. But I literally used to go to a karaoke bar every night of my life. Every night.
And you sang?
3 years. I sang every single night. That was why I went.
Wow.
And I just saw like how alcohol loosens people up, makes people more friendly. Yeah. You know, like in a karaoke bar, there are people who are terrified by a mouse squeak where they'll have a drink and you can be belting out Bon Jovi together and you have a great time and it's really fun, right? So, so for a long time, and I've got a buddy who, sadly, I'm not allowed to talk to him anymore, Matt Johnson. Do you know Matt Johnson?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so I'm not allowed to talk to him because of this damn conviction. They forbade me to talk to all my friends, basically, including Matt. But Matt was the biggest proponent of this. He said, look, if you actually want to create like a chill atmosphere where people can be themselves and feel connected and feel loose, you have to allow some alcohol. So I kind of was persuaded by Matt for many years. But I think I've gone 180 degrees the other way now. Partly because there's just more research showing that alcohol is pretty dangerous at all levels. There was a time when people thought you could have a couple glasses of wine a night and it's totally fine. And now I think the conclusion is every single drink literally is killing your brain cells. Like
for sure,
it is a poison. It's killing your brain cells. And you know, personally, I don't think we should legislate against people doing things that are only going to hurt themselves because we all do some things that are self-destructive. Like I have potato chips. It's not the best thing, but I do have potato chips.
Right.
And I certainly wouldn't want people to not allow me to have potato chips. But the other thing about alcohol is I just become convinced that most of what people achieve with alcohol can be achieved using other methods. Like you can create a super safe and chill and fun, sober vibe if you just have the right culture and the right people, the right music.
Totally agree.
You can make, so the best dance party I've ever been to in my life was a completely sober dance party.
That's awesome.
It was, and everybody felt so loose, and it didn't matter if you were the worst dancer in the world or you were like a world expert ballerina. Everyone was just having fun. There was no judgment. The music was vibrant. Everyone was in the same rhythm. There was this sense of love in the room.
Yeah.
It was so beautiful and it was completely sober. And
then you wake up the next morning and you don't feel like crap.
And you don't feel like shit. So it was just, in fact, it was actually at the DXC Forum in 2017.
Wow.
So there was a big action the next morning. So people it had to be sober because we couldn't have people hungover the next day. We had a big action the next day. But there was a dance party that night. And this is almost kind of stupid to say because I've had a lot of peak moments in my life and I've had a lot of like really inspiring experiences. But I kid you not, that dance party was like one of the best moments of my life.
Wow.
I felt that too. Hundreds of people. Yeah, it was hundreds of people who none of whom knew each other very well. and we all connected over the music and the rhythm and the motion.
Wow. No, I felt this too. A lot of times I go out and
Yeah.
literally most of the time, I think what's holding me back is like putting the label sober over my name. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
majority of the time when everybody's ordering a drink, I'm the one that doesn't. But I just
Yeah.
can't say fully because
And I'm sober.
every now and then I'm like, somebody will hand me a beer and I'll have a few sips of it. But that's really the extent to it. I think the other thing too is there's like this side of me where it's like you'll have a few drinks and then next thing you know, you're just so bold. You're doing things that you wouldn't normally do. I'm making out with someone in the corner. You know what I mean? Mostly girls. And I'm like, this is saying something.
Oh my
My
God.
boyfriend's pouting in the corner.
The true Jamie Logan is coming out right now. Even your boyfriend is going to be shocked by this. This is terrible. No, I'm kidding. You should feel
He
free to say
knows.
whatever you want. No judgment. No
I'm
judgment.
unstoppable. Yeah. So I think that's just like I guess I could do that sober. It's
Yeah.
just more scary.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing is, I mean, as someone who hasn't kind of used substances to change my mental state, I've definitely learned that there are enormous benefits to being able to change your mental state without the assistance of a substance completely voluntarily. So, for example, courage. I'm like you. I was a little surprised to hear you say this, but not that surprised because people say the same thing about me. They're like, "Oh, Wayne, you must be so brave because you've done all this crazy shit and you just like, you know, you argue for yourself in court when you're facing 60 years in prison. You walk through police lines. You get the shit beaten out of you by dog meat traders in China. You must be a very brave person." I'm like, well, not really. I mean, in many ways, intrinsically, I feel like one, I'm a super people pleaser type. I'm always very anxious about what other people think, and I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. But second, when I was a kid, I was, just very sensitive. I still feel very sensitive. Like I'm very susceptible to pain, and I don't like it when anyone's hurting around me. It really upsets me, and it's hard to do protests, for example, because like when someone's screaming at me, I'm like hurting with them. I feel bad. They feel bad. But the thing that has helped me over the years has always been realizing I can overcome it. It's not that I don't feel the struggle or the anxiety or even the straight out fear. Like I developed this attitude that I think a lot of people use alcohol for when I'm anxious. Instead of drinking, I just said, all right, you just have to go towards anxiety. Whatever you're scared of, it almost became almost a compulsion for me that whenever I was scared of something, I went towards it to the point that it was a little dangerous because I do a lot of stupid things that you really shouldn't do. But it was extraordinarily helpful for me in realizing, because now when I feel that, I know I've been through this exact experience 1,000 times, like even giving closing arguments in Sonoma. This is the recent trial I had. I mean, I was standing alone. All the defendants were out facing 6 years in prison. You got the power of the state coming after you, and I have to give this closing argument. And yeah, my heart did beat a little bit, but I had that experience so many times before, so I knew it's happening, and yet guess what? You can overcome it. And that's something that is beautiful. And I think it's really cool that your parents let you just run around when you're 12, because I think that's one of the huge problems with kind of parents today. Too many of them are just shielding their kids from everything.
Yeah.
And then they can't have experiences where they learn and grow and realize they're strong. So
absolutely. I learned and grew so much from that. And I love that you're saying that just you got to face that anxiety. And you're absolutely right, because what alcohol and other substances do is they just put a band-aid over whatever those anxious feelings might be. Or sometimes if you go into a social setting and things are a little weird at first or tense or people are shy, until you kind of overcome that hurdle, the alcohol does help to speed up that process. But it's just putting a band-aid over something that is actually an indicator of, wait, this is actually something I should be working on then. If I'm feeling this certain way, the question should be, why am I feeling this way? Not let me try to feel a different way. And it should be trying to target and solve that. So yeah, I really love that you brought that up. That's so important.
Yeah. Speaking of entering a social situation and feeling anxiety and overcoming it and just connecting everyone, you seem extraordinarily good at that. I don't know if you identify as someone who's effective socially, but I think it's important for activists and really all human beings. All of us want to be the sort of person who can walk into a room and just engage with people in a really positive way and bring up the mood of the room. So like, First of all, I mean, do you feel that way about yourself? Do you identify as someone who's okay, good? Because that is, I mean, that's my perception for sure. Like you're good at connecting with people.
I love people. I really do.
Mm,
And I think especially when I'm in a room with activists or I'm at something like a conference with other, I just get so
yeah,
excited to see these people because they're kind of the only 2% of the population I really relate to.
yeah, that's
um,
awesome.
but when I'm in a room with non-vegans, it's an opportunity, I think, to get them on our side. I think of them as allies. Like we have to stop seeing them as the enemy and start looking at them as allies. And so, whether that just be asking them more questions about themselves, seeing, I like listening as well. Really, I'm curious about how other people live their lives, what's important to them. And I think being that my purpose is to change this world, I'll then try to, point out little things like, oh, cool, you have a dog. What's your dog's name? And then I'll be like, I have a dog named Daisy. She's
Mm,
actually the reason that I do the work that I do today, and
mm,
kind of just sort of tailoring the conversation. But yeah, I would say I really am happy to be around people and to meet people. Not to say that I always am. I mean, people's moods fluctuate
fluctuate, sure.
for sure. But I definitely gravitate towards, I'm an extroverted introvert. So I
Mm,
do need my time
fun.
alone. I'll sometimes, even tell my partner, like, hey, I need space. I
Get out.
want to read and get out. I told him
Yeah.
to leave the other day.
That's
It
awesome.
was 10 a.m. We just woke up.
Uh,
Woke up. It was a Saturday morning. I was like, I need
like,
today
you leave.
by myself for no reason at all. He's great. He's like,
Yeah,
okay, I'm gonna go meet up with my friends. I'm like, okay,
that's
thank
awesome.
you. Bye. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, what was that video you sent me after the first time? Like, because I think we had, like, I'd heard about you and we probably
Oh,
chatted on some sort of social media before, but you
the
sent me this
tick.
video of you doing the tick thing. That's right.
The
And
tick.
then, but you're interacting with people, and what were you asking them to do? It was something really
I
weird.
was holding a sign that says, "Can I bite you?"
That's
And I
right.
was
That's right. Can I bite you? Yes.
and I was dressed as
And
the Lone Star Tick.
no, that's right. Okay, yeah, now I'm remembering it. Yes. So you had this. Well, yeah, tell people about this. And just
Sure.
it was just the way you were engaging with people was such a positive. I mean, it was effective too, and it was
Thank you.
confronting the fact that there's this horrible thing that's happening to animals and the
Yeah.
Lone Star tick. But yeah, so can you explain to people the Lone Star tick thing you do?
Sure. So I really do try to get creative in my approach. And part of just how I am and who I've always been is I'm a jokester. I like to mess
Mhm.
with people all the time. And so it just, I don't, I was reading something about the Lone Star tick biting people and it turns them allergic to
Vegan.
a lot of animal products. Not
Yeah, right.
everything, but like
Yeah,
most
it's
animal
red meat,
products.
right?
Red
Yeah.
meat, especially, but even,
Okay.
I mean, you can't have dairy either.
Really interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you can't have pork or, I think chicken even as well. I think you might be able to have eggs, but either
Okay.
way, it creates the way that it works is it creates a when a tick bites you, it's like they inject a sugar into your bloodstream, which then you develop an autoimmune response, and that same sugar is found in animal products. So your body, anytime you eat meat after being bitten by a Lone Star tick, you have a horrible reaction from hives to diarrhea to a lot of major complications. So I was holding a sign dressed as the Lone Star Tick in Washington Square Park, and I was like, the sign said, "Can I bite you?" And people were very receptive. This girl was begging me to bite her, and I was like, "Babe, you're already vegan." She's like, "You can still bite me anyway." I was like, "Okay, maybe." Um, but then it was just a really fun way to engage
Yeah,
in the
engage with
topic
people.
of what's happening to the animals and how our food system is working because people didn't see it coming. Like their guard was
Yeah,
already off because I look like a lunatic. Like
yeah,
clearly I'm in a vulnerable state. So they already kind of had like a soft spot in their heart for me, I think.
yeah.
And so when we started engaging in the conversations, I was like, listen, I'll give you one of two options. You either go vegan for the right reasons, or you go vegan because I bite you.
Right.
And so here are the right reasons. The reasons are for the animals, for the environment, or for your own health. And if you don't want to do it, then you're going to go vegan one way or another.
Another. Yeah, nice. How many people let you bite them?
A few people, but a lot of people actually, the majority said that they would go vegan for on their own.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you kind of imposed a tough choice on that. The time that they get bitten, they go
Well,
vegan. So
I think they were
if
more.
only advocacy were that easy, we could just go around saying either I bite you or you go vegan.
I know, right? I'm just like, we should just release the Lone Star tick at this point. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
working on it. But I would say, like,
You're giving us a very bad name because I get accused of bioterrorism. And now the truth is coming out that we actually are bioterrorists because of Jamie Logan. Thanks, Jamie.
I'm dressing up as the tick.
Everything for me. No,
I think people were more curious as to how I would actually bite them. Like, am I going to sink my teeth into their skin? Like, what is about to happen?
So wait, what did you actually do? Did you actually bite people?
No,
Well, you
I'm
did,
not putting my mouth on these
Wait, no, I thought I saw in the video. Didn't you like you like
menaces.
fake bit them, right?
Yeah, fake bit
You
them.
fake bit them.
them.
Okay,
Yeah.
Wow. So you're not as hardcore as I thought.
But I was sneaking up. Well, I mean, there might have been a few people I would have considered biting, but not
even that girl who just insisted on getting bitten. You didn't even bite her?
her I would consider biting, but she didn't need the bite. Right. But I was going behind trees and like sneaking up behind people and then just like popping out of nowhere, and people were like, "What the?"
See, this is the sort of thing that you can do, but someone like me cannot do. If I do it, I just get murdered. I mean, I'm serious. I just get murdered. And it won't even be like a nice murder. It won't be like a shooting or like a strangling. It'll be like, they're ripping my arms off and impaling me and then leaving my dismembered body hanging from a tree for 10 hours as I slowly die. You can get
I have the costume.
Innocent.
If you ever change your mind, I have the costume. It's under my bed.
If I ever decide to kill myself, that's the way I'm going to go. That's the way I'm going to go because I would die. I mean, you can get away with this. Yeah. No, but I mean, so one of the beautiful things about that action, I think that everyone can learn. I mean, look, not everyone's going to get into a tick costume and ask to bite people, but I think the thing I like most about that, I mean, obviously the use of humor is pretty cool. And I think humor's under acknowledged as a mechanism for social change.
Yes.
Especially when we mock the other side, but mock them in a way that's not like insulting the individual, but just pointing out the absurdity of the system. Kind of like Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart's the master of this. He's always pointing out the absurdity of the system and saying, really, do you want to be part of this nonsense or do you want to be part of like the common sense solutions that all of us are working towards? But the other thing about it, even if it wasn't funny, and there's like this warmth to the activism. Like, people are drawn to it rather than repulsed away from it.
Oh, people were running to me. I had like circles of people around me. They're like trying to figure out what is going on here.
Yeah, and it's partly the action, but it's partly kind of the tone and your personality. And I'm sure you've like worked on that over the years because I'm a little surprised to say you identify as an introvert because you definitely seem like an extrovert when people interact with you. Like you seem like you're really, you want people around you and you're drawing people towards you. But I do think there's a lot of value in that. There's this book on charisma called The Charisma Myth, written by, she's actually vegan, a vegan leadership coach who's coached a bunch of tech executives in the Bay Area. I think she's like coached the CEOs of Google and all these other top Silicon Valley executives, because all these nerds, they don't know anything about charisma. They're sitting around looking down at the ground while they talk to you. They're, just not very charismatic. And so they need a leadership coach. And one of the things she says is charisma is learned. It's not intrinsic. It's a learned behavior. And one of the most important things that people don't realize about charisma is it's not necessarily being a great speaker or even necessarily being like super attractive. Those things help. I mean, I wish they didn't, but they do matter. It matters like how physically attractive you are. It's kind of, shitty for me, great for you, but terrible for me. That physical attraction is,
I disagree.
Unfortunately, makes you more influential because it's terrible for me. But one of the things she says is that one of the most important characteristics that you actually can control is just warmth. If you are warm, then people, they want to be around you. They want to like listen to you. They're more likely to be persuaded by your arguments just because you're warm. And that action is like, it's a funny action, but it was like a super warm action. It feels very inviting. And it's surprising for people to hear this about me because I've organized all these disruptions and I get beaten up all the time. And like a lot of people hate me, but I like, even when we're doing the wildest stuff, the most confrontational stuff, like I almost think it's even more important when you're doing confrontational stuff and you're really doing something challenging to be even more warm, to like show people, hey, this is not about my feelings about you. In fact, if anything, I like you. I'm doing this because I really believe in you. And that is the trick you pull off really well in those actions that I love.
Thank you. And it hasn't always been that way. Like when I first started activism, I was going into grocery stores and just doing like these very intense speak outs where people, I
Yeah.
think, were focusing on the optics of it and being like, she's screaming at the
Yeah.
top of her
She's
lungs.
an
I'm not
asshole.
even listening to what she's saying. She looks like a lunatic. Whereas the disruption that I just did last week in Massachusetts, I went to UMass Amherst and I confronted the chancellor for using marmoset monkeys in experiments at the school. And instead of going up to him and being like, you bastard, like, how dare you? You know, what, you hate animals. What's wrong with you? I actually said, please, I am begging you. I know you have the kindness in your heart. You know, we don't want to see animals be harmed and you have the power to end this. Use that position that you have. Please, I'm asking you nicely. I'm begging you. So it was that sort of approach. And the audience, it was silent. Like you could hear a pin drop and people were really listening
Wow.
to what I was saying. And
Right
it,
on.
it was I think, a pretty successful action. We'll see. I mean, we're going to keep the pressure on, obviously, but
That's awesome. Was this a PETA campaign?
yeah.
Cool. Is there somewhere I can watch that? I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
Is it on
I'll
Instagram or
send
something?
Yeah, I'll send
All
it
right,
to you.
send
I
it to me.
posted it on Instagram
Um,
on my Jamie's Corner. It's Jamie's Corner.
yeah, one of the most beautiful examples of this is, you know, Priya, right?
Yes, of course.
Priya. Oh, I miss Priya. Priya's.
Beautiful.
I can't talk to her. It's really sad. She's my best friend, and I can't talk to her. It's actually been kind of terrible. Because I talked to her about everything, and I can't talk to her. I can't even be within 100 yards of her. And she co-parents my dog, so you know, like it's been a huge problem. But anyways,
Yeah.
let's get out of the doom and gloom because you know, get back to happy selves. She did a disruption of Jeff Bezos, the CEO and founder of Amazon. That is another beautiful example of that because she went up to him with a flower and she just says, Jeff, you're the richest man in the world. Please, can you help the animals? I think you can help the animals. And it's she says it in this like almost a loving way. And she's like such a beautiful, charismatic human being. She looks so elegant. And she's just going up and giving him a flower.
I love that. I have
I know
chills.
it was really, really powerful. And when you watch Jeff, it's like it was pretty cool too because he looks just so contemptuous. It's almost like he's a comic book villain going up against this like angel who's coming out. And it was such a wild demonstration. It got so much positive media. Even Fox News supported her and said like, hey, I think this woman's got a point. It was such a powerful action. I loved it so much.
I have to watch that. That's incredible.
it's
We need
good.
more stuff like that. Yes, going up to
Yeah.
people in power and just simply like confronting them. And I think also even going up to certain celebrities that might be outspoken about animal rights and be like, thank you for defending animals. Thank you. Like
Yeah.
also being, you know, grateful for people like a Jennifer
Yeah.
Coolidge, like a Joaquin Phoenix, that they do use their power and voice
Oh,
to
yeah.
speak up where
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah, Joaquin's amazing. He doesn't like my work at all for some reason, but he's amazing.
That's absurd to me.
At least I think he doesn't like my work. I'm not sure, but anyways, that's another
Who
story I
could
could tell you
not
another
like
time.
your work? You are a legend. I mean,
Rob, have you been on the internet?
that is absurd to me.
There's so many people that hate me and hate my guts.
I
Okay,
can't even
but-
imagine. I just want to touch on the infighting situation in like a few words. We don't have to get super deep into it. But if you don't like the way somebody is doing activism, then do it better. Don't stand there
I
and
agree.
criticize and go on and on and on and create division, because the most important thing and the one thing that we have is each other. And we need to stick together, and you can agree to disagree on certain things, but to stand there
100%.
and I hate when people are like talking about another activist or talking shit about this. It's like that is such a waste of time.
Totally.
That
I
is
agree with
such
you
a waste of
100%. And I'll give you an example of you know, like I'm with you 100%. And I like the idea of using kind of warmth in our disruptions. And
Me too.
my buddy John, actually another person I can't talk to, used to call them love disruptions, where you disrupt with the power of love. And I know that's kind of corny, and he's a little bit woo-woo. He's like a spiritual guy. He does a lot of yoga and stuff. He's a certified yoga instructor. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, John is one of my best friends in the world. But he used to call them love disruptions, where you disrupt with love. And I very much believe in that. And I love advocating for it. I love encouraging other activists to do it. Having said that, I also really, really respect Rob Banks, you know, in the disruption scene.
Yes, me too.
Because I do think in many ways the contrast is important. My view is the majority of the movement should be love-based and should be compassion-based, but anger is part of the movement too.
It is.
And work
We need it all.
he does disrupting celebrities, in many ways it makes your activism even more inviting, because if they're expecting Rob Banks and they get Jamie Logan, then
No,
you know,
Rob and I work
makes it even
together.
more effective. Yeah, Rob
and I work together all the time. And
He's a
him and
legend.
we've disrupted
Rob is great.
quite a few celebrities. He actually was my first inspiration when it came to the animal rights movement and getting involved on that level. We
He's a legend.
disrupted Kate Upton in one of her, she had a workout class in the city, and he signed me up for the class. I had my yoga mat. I fit right in with these blonde, skinny white bitches, and they would have
Are you allowed to talk
never.
about your people that way?
I mean, they're my people. They know I'm coming from a place of love. Just
All right,
speaking
good.
the truth here. And I had my poster, rolled up in a little bag, and then him, and another activist
Oh shit! I know. I think I saw this.
we
I
disrupted
totally saw this. I didn't even know who you were back then, but I saw this. That was an
we
epic
shut
demonstration.
down her class for quite a
I
bit.
do remember this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Oh
was
man,
on
you got to send me this
TMZ.
too.
Yeah,
It
and
was
it
on
wasn't.
TMZ. That was huge news.
Yeah, it was, but it
Oh, that was
wasn't.
righteous.
It wasn't like, super angry or whatever. I mean, he was
Yeah.
he was giving a speak out. He's like, "You are a monster. Like, what is wrong with
Yeah.
you?" And then me
Shame on you. You should
then
be
when-
ashamed of yourself.
yeah,
That's
and
Rob
then
Banks.
I didn't know what to say, so I was just like, "How dare you?"
That's great.
And that's the only thing that you see or hear of me. Like, well, you see me with the poster or whatever, but he was already carried out. So I just looked at her and I was like, "How dare you?" And
How
he
dare
makes
you.
fun of me to this day because he's like, "You
That's the best
couldn't
you
have
could
said
do.
like anything like meaner than that."
Hey,
I'm like, "No, I
no.
probably could have. I just didn't know what to say at the
You're too nice.
But no,
You're a love-based activist, so
I don't think I'm too nice though. I can give it to people when needed,
you can be a monster.
But
Nice.
I think we all have a little
We all have that
in
gene.
us. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, no,
It's
it's funny. My niece, who I think is 9 years old now, about a year ago, she learned the words "How dare you," and it just like changed our entire family's life. Because now everything, it's like, she's like, "Can I have $20?" And I'm like, "No." How dare you? I'm like, "Can we get ice cream?" No, I mean, I'm in the middle of cleaning the bathroom, or I need to take a shower, or like, I'm cooking dinner. She's like, "How dare you?" She
I
just
dare.
learned these 3 words, and it's changed everything. So
That's a great
don't
line.
discount the power of those 3 words, because she's taught
Thank
me
you.
the power. Because every time she says them, I'm like, "Whoa, how dare I?" I better get her ice cream, or I better go take her to the
Right.
movies, whatever she wants. Because I mean, how dare you?
Then after we did Kate Upton, we did Jessica Simpson 2 times in one day. We got her twice.
In one day.
And yeah, and I was he was outside of Barnes and Noble. They would have recognized him, so he put me in. I was in a black wig and glasses, and I went in with a few other activists.
Damn.
Disrupted the crap out of her Barnes and Noble signing. I mean, on the front page of the Daily Mail was me holding up the poster. You couldn't see my face, like I was blocking my face with the poster, but the poster was a skinned animal. And that was such a win and such a victory, because it's like we got that on the cover of the Daily Mail, and like also TMZ, and discussing the fur industry, and it was
amazing.
super epic. And then the next day, Jessica Simpson posted a Instagram photo in a long, what looked like fur coat. And at the bottom on the caption, it said #faux fur.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
Has she gone fur free completely, or was it just that one time? Do you know?
I think she has. I don't think she wears fur anymore. I mean, but
That's
you never
awesome.
know with these celebrities. You look at the Kardashians now, and who once posed in PETA, anti-fur ads, are now in fur coats. So I don't know.
Oh, are they? That's monstrous. Jeez.
Yeah.
The Kardashians. That's so terrible. Yeah, I definitely want to watch this Kate Upton disruption. I think I remember this. It's like, it was like a few years. It was 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was. I'm trying to find.
Yeah,
All right, I'll watch it later. At the end of the day, real change happens in the real world, not in social media.
And I think to flip it and look at it in terms of the animal rights perspective in social media, when you use social media to educate about animal rights and the food system, that can have direct impact, because it can educate people and cause financial loss to the industry.
To do real things. Yeah.
To
People
do real
things in the real world. It's not just on social media.
Right. And
all right.
You can actually see this real quick, that there was unfortunately a huge flux. I think it was 10 or 11% of seafood sales went up, because social media influencers were posting about the seafood industry, and they were hiring influencers to promote it, and the seafood sales actually went up. And they skyrocketed. Yeah, because of a few influencers that were promoting this. And so, that being said, I think that when you look at like the use of social media in the animal rights world, it does have that direct effect. A lot of the time, I was just telling you, I was working on a video that got over 2 million views, and we ended up flooding the district attorney's office with petitions and emails because the video led people to sign the petition.
That's awesome.
So that's just,
What case was that?
Can I say? Can I talk about it?
I think
Yeah,
so.
I can. I mean, I know you guys aren't allowed to talk. So it was with Zoe Rooster. And so Zoe Rooster is an activist. You know her, obviously, DXD activist. Yeah. She's facing over 20 years in prison. She's got her ankle monitor on. What?
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. So her and I did a video together where we asked people if they could guess why she has an ankle monitor on and why she would be facing 20 years in prison. And somebody's like, Grand Theft Auto. Another person's like, enslaving children, murder. Right. They came up with all these absurd excuses. I'm like, come on, she looks so innocent. Look at her. So then it was like, had this humorous element to it. But, people were very engaged in it, and we created a 90-second reel from all the footage that we got. And the video got over 2 million views on YouTube. And
that's amazing.
People went to the petition link and signed the petition and flooded the district attorney's office, basically pleading and asking them, like, please do not prosecute this individual for saving 2 dying ducks from the floor of a factory farm.
Yeah, it's vile what they're doing to her. It's just totally disgusting and horrible. And I'm glad you're doing that activism. And yeah, she is on the list of prohibited people. I'm not allowed to contact her, but other people can talk to her. I can't even talk about her. I just can't talk to her, or I get thrown in jail instantly. Okay. And actually, someone reported me already. So someone will probably report me for this too, but whatever.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, when I was in probation last week, my probation officer told me a bunch of people reported me already. So all these people are stalking me and trying to claim that on my social media I contacted someone I was prohibited from contacting. But
you know what, though? That's how you know you're making
I'm going to check out the video.
They feel so threatened by you because you're smart, you're making a difference, you're getting the word out there, you're telling these stories on a greater scale, getting this information into articles written by the New York Times. I mean, that is what we need, is to get this message mainstream. So that's why they feel threatened by you. And you know what? Good. They can go fuck themselves because we're gonna win.
We are gonna win. All right. So one last, well, not last thing. I mean, I'd love to hear anything else you want to talk about, but I did want to ask you just one question about just being an influencer and what that means and how you decided to do that, because it's such a weird change in activism over the last 20 years. I think there's been a big shift away from organizations and towards individual personalities, and I honestly resisted that for a long time. So, I mean, probably unfortunately, the most famous thing I ever wrote is this article called Boycott Veganism, which no one should read. Please don't read it. It doesn't mean what you think it means, first of all.
Okay. I was just going to say.
Jamie's like, talk about demons. Is Wayne about to make the big reveal? Like, this is his moment of coming out. He's actually a mole for the industry. Enough people think I'm a mole for Chipotle that I don't need more people alleging that I'm secretly a meat eater.
Oh my God, can you imagine?
That literally, if you just read me on the title, the subtitle of the article was "Animal Rights Only Begins with Your Diet." Didn't say you should not change your diet. It said animal rights only begins with your diet. That's why it was called Boycott Veganism. But
got it.
I didn't even put my name on it. Like, people didn't know who I was when I wrote it, but it went kind of viral before virality was even a thing on like Tumblr. Do you even remember Tumblr? You might be
yes, of course.
Okay. So it went viral on Tumblr a number of times. I wasn't even on Tumblr. I don't even know how Tumblr got a hold of this because I circulated on a bunch of vegan forums. But back in like the 2000s and even the early 2010s, I felt like a lot of activism was based on organizations like PETA. And there's been a big shift, not just towards social media versus the mainstream media, like the New York Times, or big organizations like PETA and HSUS, but towards individual personalities. And so I just wonder, have you seen that same shift? And it seems to me you're like deliberately harnessing that and recognizing the power of that influencer model in creating a platform for animals. Is that true? And what do you think other people can learn from this?
Absolutely. I think we need to use the mediums that we have available at our times to advocate. So in the early 2000s, people were more so on the ground. There wasn't social media. There was direct action, as we were talking about earlier. Then you start to see like the 2010s, 2015, there's more Snapchat open, but Instagram wasn't so much a thing. Then it was like in my early college years, then Instagram became more of a thing. And then with the pandemic, you start to see TikTok. And the thing that I really want to point out is it's like, we need to go where the most eyeballs are.
Yeah.
And so right now, I mean, most people have Instagram on their phone or have TikTok on their phone. And in a few clicks of a button, you could get millions of views on your video and get your message heard and seen. So absolutely, it's deliberate when I post. However, becoming an influencer was not deliberate. So at my core, I'm an animal rights activist, and I will do whatever it takes to get our message heard and to achieve animal liberation. I do many different forms of activism. So I do disruptions, I do demonstrations, I do AV cubes. So AV cubes, for those people that don't know, it's like you stand in a public place with a TV screen that shows standard footage of how the food industry works, and you talk to people. And it's a very educational, peaceful approach. And I like that because AV was the first form of activism that I did. It got me comfortable speaking about these issues. Also, I noticed direct change within people. I had people come up to me years later and be like, "Are you Jamie Logan? I think we met a few years ago. I just want to let you know I've been vegan ever since." And this has happened multiple times. So that being said, I do all different forms of activism. So the way that my influencer stuff started was after college. Well, in college, I was going to slaughterhouse vigils, and I was documenting the conditions that the animals were in before they were taken inside, and trying to get my audience on social media to see, where these animals came from and the conditions they were in. And I met this filmmaker named Jordan Ehrlich of Cave Light Films at an animal rights march. And he came up to me, we started talking. He's like, "What do you do?" And I was like, "Well, what I really focus on is AV cubes, and I go to vigils." Anyway, he goes, "I'd love to go to a vigil and film it. Do you think I could come with you to one?" So I was like, "Yes, we would love you to. Please, we want more eyeballs on this, and we would love to film it." He came and filmed one of our vigils, and the film that he made was called The Save Movement, and it ended up getting over 20 million views worldwide. And this showed me the power of film. So after that film was made, long story short, I started working with him for 3 years right out of college. And we made 6 short films on mainstream media platforms that told stories in the animal rights movement. Then one day he said to me, "I'd love to come with you to one of these AV cubes, and maybe I'll just film one of your conversations." I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." He came and filmed it, and we came back to his apartment, and we were watching the footage. And it was so absurd, some of the awkwardness of the conversations and the interactions. And it was humorous, but also serious. And so he goes, "There's something here. Let's try editing it a little bit and see what we got." And that's how Jamie's Corner started. And I just got overwhelming response from non-vegans, from vegans alike. And I was like, I need to run with this. And I just need to be myself more when advocating, because we need to be relatable. If somebody just sees me being this vigilante vegan out and about, and they can't relate to me, then they're not going to want to be like me. And I don't think they're going to want to go vegan. So that being said, that's how the influencer stuff started. And I'm just like, you know what? If I can use myself to get the message out there, then sure, I'll do that.
Yeah, that's a huge part of how I started being on social media much more often and started basically making videos. And I mean, writing was always a part of my activism, but so early in DXC's history, we were making all these videos, and obviously video was always a big part of what we were trying to do, because we launched around the time YouTube was really starting to blow up, and there were videos going viral for the first time in virality. I mean, it was just, for example, when we started in 2012, 2013, Facebook didn't even have video. Instagram didn't even exist. I mean, these platforms didn't exist, but YouTube was starting to blow up. And we were trying all these different videos and seeing which ones were doing well, and consistently the ones that did the best were the ones that featured particular personalities, like me and Priya in particular. Priya makes a lot more sense than me. I still don't understand why people like, I guess I say sensible things, but I don't understand why anyone listens to what I have to say.
People are attracted to faces. They're attracted to
they like human beings and personality. So, and I guess I am a personality. I'm a little bit of a weirdo. So it's interesting. I'm definitely a little bit of a weirdo. But we just noticed that it was super easy to make a video get bigger, if it just was
Yeah.
me talking, and because you just get familiar with a particular person, and but
Right.
the problem is with that model, and I think it's really important, and that's why I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, and you're developing a personality that people are getting to know you. Partly because I know you, and I know you're super charismatic and interesting, and I think other people
Thank
can see
you.
this, and it can draw a lot of people into the movement. The danger in that is it does create a lot of just like passive followers who just sit around and watch Jamie or Wayne or Joey Carbstrong or whoever it is, and
Mm-mm.
and I think, yeah, exactly. And that's what we have to overcome. And I think there are a lot of ways to do that. One is just creating more influencers. But the other way is I really love what Nos Daily. Do you know who Nos Daily is?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, Nos Daily, he's like an influencer. He used to be really big on Facebook, and now he's got a big Instagram page. And he used to make a 1 minute video every single day. It was like a travel vlog. His videos are really good. So I really encourage you to check out his videos. His name's, I forget his real name, but the platform's called Nos Daily, NASDAI, like daily, NAS Daily. And Nos makes these videos. He's got like a dominant platform, tons of followers. Every one of his videos gets millions of views. But he started creating meetups around them. And he's also started just encouraging other people to make videos too.
That's
And so
great.
it's like a network of people. And this is just about travel and fun. Although it's very, very interesting. Recently, partly because of all these people he connected with and learned from and met, he became vegan fairly recently because he just realized, I'm meeting all these people around the world and realizing this is not consistent with my values. And he made a great video about veganism and about how, look, if we don't kill and eat dogs, we shouldn't really be killing any animals. And it's that simple.
Wow.
It's not that hard of an argument. But I think one of the beautiful things about the networks he's created is it's not just about him. It's about the community around him, and it's about lifting up other voices. I would love to
Yes.
see all the vegan influencers like banding together to really empower our audiences to feel like, look, we're super happy you're amused and entertained by your tick video or, by the funny video you made of Zoe, or, inspired by a video of me getting the shit beaten out of me. Although, why would that inspire you? I guess my haters will be inspired by a video of me getting the shit beaten out of me. But whatever it is, amusing, entertaining, inspiring, hilarious, the key thing is it can't just be watching. If we're actually going to create change, if this isn't just about giving YouTube and Google and Facebook more advertising dollars, which, honestly, sorry to everyone who doesn't like the F word, but fuck Facebook, fuck YouTube. I don't give a damn. I don't care if Larry Page gets another $1 billion. Although I have heard Larry Page, the CEO of Google, is an anti-speciesist. I should say the founder of Google. He used to be the CEO. I've heard he's like an animal rights guy. I don't know if that's true or not.
Okay.
But he's got plenty of billions. He doesn't need another $1 billion. Jeremy just went our monetization. So no, but look, I don't care about making money for these platforms, and I don't care about, like, my dream is to go off to an island with my dog and start a family and like have a couple
Aw.
friends and not engage with the world. I don't want to be out there. I really don't. Like
No, I agree.
I
I
don't.
wish we didn't have to do what we do.
Yeah, I don't.
I
I mean,
really do.
I'm very extroverted, but I've never liked appearing in public. I don't like speaking. I don't like leadership. I mean, I understand that I have some experiences and skills that make me a reasonably effective leader. So I feel compelled to try and be a leader, but I don't want to do it. I mean, I really want to just hang out with animals and play all day. That's what I'd love to do. And by the same token, I'm sure there are a lot of people who watch this stuff and they see us doing things and say, like, I could never do that. I don't even want to do it. But if you really are serious about change, you got to do it anyways.
Yeah.
You got to not just watch what Jamie's doing. You've got to do what Jamie is doing. Right. So, and maybe that's not exactly what Jamie's doing. Maybe you don't get into a tick outfit and offer to bite people. Although I think that is awesome. It's a hilarious stunt.
It's fun.
Whatever it is fun. But whatever it is that you can do, maybe it's you're an accountant. You can help some organization with their 501c3 work, whatever it is. But you've got to get out there and do something. Can't just be about passive consumption of this content. So,
and those actions might change over time, like it did for me.
Yeah.
This was not a over one day, go to bed and then wake up and then now I'm, an influencer and posting about this stuff. Like, this was years of being an activist, putting in the work, and now just kind of putting a camera on some of the things that I do and that I've always done. But kind of like what you're saying, yeah, absolutely. This is the kind of thing where I wish I didn't have to do these things. I wish that we lived in a world where animals and people were respected and that there was liberation and we didn't have to be out there. I mean, it's exhausting, and social media is exhausting too. Like, I mean, you kind of learn to develop this very thick skin because of all the hate and the comments. But that being said, I know that when the haters get there, and I know that when the bacon comments come in, that I'm reaching the audience I want to reach. I don't need people's praise and their support, and they're like, oh, you're so good at this. It's like, I want you to change. I don't need your support. I want you to change. And if you've already changed and you're already vegan, like, thank you. I appreciate your kind words. And seriously, a lot of that like keeps me sane and like, you know, helps me to keep doing what I'm doing. But like, really, you just learn to kind of like put your own discomfort aside, stay strong, go on, and you know, just kind of look at like some of these comments as a reflection of what's going on inside some of these their own minds. People aren't mean. People aren't mean when there's nothing hurting inside their own hearts.
They're mean when they're hurt. Yeah. And I hope look, I'm not trying to say like, oh, boo hoo, you know, influencers are having such a hard life, but I do think people should be forgiving of figures in the movement who are getting out there and doing stuff, like, and understand she's facing a lot of different pressures and she's doing the best she can with the information she has. And I think, to be blunt, especially with women, I just feel like, because, Priya, Priya and I are super close. She's my best friend that I can't talk to. I've just seen how much hate she got from all the different forces in the movement. And I think it's especially bad with women because, like, I think it's okay to say this. I don't think she cares because I think she's talked about this. Like, the number of people who just insulted her for her eyebrows, which are beautiful. Her eyebrows are perfect and fine.
I think they're perfect.
Women, exactly, they're perfect. But just the number of, like, just asinine comments that people are already facing as influencers in the movement, and the things you have to do that, like, to an outside observer, like getting your makeup on or doing all the things that, someone might make fun of you, like, oh, you're so superficial. It's like, well, no, I kind of have to do some of these things because it makes it more effective. And even if you disagree and you think I don't have to do these things or I should be doing things differently, you don't like my eyebrows, like, I'm doing the best I can. And all of us, instead of condemning, even if you don't like it the way Jamie's doing it or the way Wayne's doing it or the way Prey's doing it, then do it your way, right?
Yes.
Like, do it your way instead of just condemning. And the hardest shit wasn't even just like the random trolls, targeting Priya or me with asinine comments about our eyebrows, or for me, asinine comments about everything. Because I don't have anything going for me. But and I don't care either, to be honest. It doesn't bother me. But the hardest thing was always when it came from people in the movement, and especially people you had met before.
That's
like,
right.
When you've met someone and like, wow, I thought like, I mean, I don't know you very well, but we had a nice conversation. I thought we liked each other. I thought we were on the same page. And then you see someone just bashing on Facebook.
I am telling you, there is no way to make everybody happy. And I've learned that. And there's just no way. And I'm just, again, doing the best that I can do. And that's all any of us can do. And I think it's important to just constantly be open to learning new information, also to work on yourself. I mean, I definitely try to work on myself. Trust me, I'm in therapy weekly. I go to yoga almost every day and try to like calm my mind and just really, again, I with my actions, and I want people to know this, I am trying to act from a place of love, in whatever I do. And maybe I'm not always making the right decisions, but it's trial and error. Like, if we knew the right thing to do, we'd see a vegan world, right?
Agreed.
So
agreed. And one thing I've already seen, and I've told this before, I know you're willing to sacrifice. You're fighting hard and you're doing what you can for the animals. And that's very inspiring. And I hope most people, I hope everybody even people who hate the animal rights movement recognize that, and you and others like you have put yourselves out there in various ways, including getting arrested. And we haven't even talked about those stories, but we're an hour and 40 minutes in. So I think we'll have to save those stories from jail for the next conversation. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about that you have coming up that you'd just like people to know about?
Yes, National Animal Rights Day, June 2nd. I'm organizing it here in New York, and it's just going to be a really great time with speakers, with poems and performances, and also a time to reflect on what happened to the animals in the past year, and a time to strategize and fight even harder for them. So,
and that's June 2nd. We'll make sure we get this podcast and YouTube video out before then. And where can people follow you on social media?
They can follow me at It's Jamie's Corner, ITS Jamie's Corner. Somebody took the regular Jamie's Corner, so now I'm It's Jamie's Corner. But anyway, that's where they can find me if they want to connect, and I'd love to hear from you guys.
So thank you, Jamie, for everything you're doing. Thank you for your sacrifices. Thank you for putting yourself out there. And next time we'll talk about dancing in jail. Okay.
Okay, let's do
All
it.
right, let's
Thank
do
you
it.
so much for having me. This was a blast.
Yeah.
Appreciate
All
you.
right. Until next time.